What's going on, guys? Welcome into Stock Talk with Nico Kritikos. Today, we're going to be talking about my prediction for the stock market index funds. And the normal one that I trade is the QQQ, but this also applies to VOO, it applies to SPY, it applies to any general stock market index. I like trading the QQQ because the NASDAQ holdings, I believe, outperform the regular index. But really, if you compare this to SPY, they're pretty much both up about 40% on the year. Just the NASDAQ has more tech stocks in it. That's pretty much it. And so right off the bat, the thing I recognize is that typically a 1 year return for the stock market of 40 to 50% is pretty much as high as it gets, right? That's not super common that happens. So right now we're at 43% return for the past 12 months, which is a lot. So this makes me think we're pretty much due for some sort of dip or crash. Okay, and we're going to talk about the election and how that relates to this too, because that factors in. We can analyze that data. But I'm looking at this like I think in terms of, like I just said, 1 year of about 40%, 45%, that's pretty much the peak. Okay. And the other thing is every 2 years or so on average, we have a 10% dip. So I always keep that in mind. And then you also have to factor in, how long do bull runs generally last? And when we have a big crash like we did in 2022, how often do those happen? And that's typically 7 years, 8 years, something like that. So since we just had a big one, that automatically makes me think that it's going to be at least another 5 years until we have another one like that. And so I'm really just looking for 10%, maybe 15% dips in the market. And that's typically where we're going to find the bottom. So that worked, and that just worked for me in this past August when the market dipped 15%. Right here on August 8th, I believe, or August 7th, it bottomed. I picked up a bunch of shares on that day, and then I sold. I've been selling the last couple of weeks. If we scroll down here, we can see that pretty much. Let's see. I think I've sold at least 25 shares or so. Let's see. So yeah. So here I sold. I the last couple of weeks I probably sold about 25 shares, and with a 10% return in roughly 2 or 3 months, really it's been what? Yeah, about 2.5 months. I think it's a super good return. So I'm happy with 10% in 2 months, but I am looking to make an even bigger position the next time as long as this market comes down to, let's say the QQQ drops to like 460, I'm happy to buy, at least 50 or 60 shares of this. So with that being said, then we get into the way the election will impact this. And typically it looks like this is kind of what it feels like to me too, because how I said the market has been pretty hot, not only this year, but the last couple months, it's been pretty hot, right? So we have not had a significant dip since September 6th now. And that's why I'm really looking for a 10% dip in this market before I start buying. But since the election is in about a week from now, I think right after probably the day after the election is when we're going to see this market start coming down. And I would say maybe at least a week or two, we're going to have a little bit of a dip, right? It's gonna dip for at least a week or two, possibly several weeks, and that's where I'm going to start making my position in the index fund. As you can see here, typically on election years, we have anywhere from 6 months before the election to about 1 month before the election is when the stock market outperforms, right? And we have pretty good returns coming. Then after the election, as you can see, as soon as it gets to about right around the day of the election, a day after, a month after, all the way up to about 6 months after, even a year after, it looks like it's been dipping, more than usual. So this could last several months. Really, this could go into, next February, next March of this bear market if we have one. But again, I think that's unlikely because since we just had a horrible crash 2 years ago, I don't think we're gonna have anything that bad. But I am waiting for our 10% dip to come to the market. So that's what makes me think even more so that in about a week or two, the market is going to come down. And once it comes down to, let's say, 450, 460, that's where I'm really going to be picking up shares at. So those are my projections for the stock market. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.